At first glance, these photos look pretty normal. Here we have a couple of guys doing martial arts training, a group of kids striking a combat pose, a cheerful little classroom group selfie, but it's actually more insidious than it looks. China's influence is growing in Solomon Island, which is this set of islands less than 1,500 km east of Australia. 4 years ago, this is what the capital looked like. Mass protests, burning buildings, and widespread anger. The riots got so bad that the Australian government received a formal diplomatic request to get in there and restore order. Our purpose here is to provide stability and security to enable the normal constitutional processes within the Solomon Islands to be able to deal with the various issues that have arisen. And the reason for these riots was the country's decision to go into business with China. In 2019, Solomon Islands switched its allegiance from Taiwan to China. Locals saw it as a betrayal and protested. A few years later, China and Solomon Islands signed a security cooperation pact which basically allowed China to send its law enforcement into the region to assist with stability tasks. The fact is, this is the worst foreign policy blunder that we've seen in the Pacific since World War II. Now, this is where the tension with Australia comes in. Australia is the largest donor to Solomon Islands. We fund policing, governance, health programs, education, over $100 million a year in funding. But earlier this year, the US cut off hundreds of millions of dollars in aid to Pacific nations, and Beijing stepped in to fill the void. China's counter-argument, if you like, was that Australia was too focused on general areas like security and governance, and not enough on tangible projects. So, they stepped in with aid, infrastructure, bridges, livelihood items, what they called budget rescue funding. This brings us back to these photos. These were taken on the island of Malaya, which is Solomon Islands' most populated province. Now, Malaya has long been the center of resistance to Chinese influence. 5 years ago, the province made global headlines when it banned Chinese investment on the island. And this was the guy who made that call, Daniel Sweeteny, Malaya's former premier. He banned Chinese companies from entering the region and even blocked Huawei mobile phone towers. Now, Sweeteny was held as a hero. This was seen as like the one-man band who was standing up to China and its influence. We have seen the destructive way, dishonest ways that these Chinese companies involve in the provinces and particularly in Malaya that is very distractful and more exploitative in a way. But in 2023, he was booted from the job and charged with inciting those riots, and the new government repealed his anti-China ban. I'm very confident that our relations with China will grow from strength to strength. The whole aim of the government is to get the Chinese companies into Mala. They would like me to be out from the premier office so that they can come in and do their developments in whatever way they want to do it. And now we have China's military forces training the next generation. They're also trying surveillance methods. There are reports of fingerprinting, community policing models, and other monitoring systems inspired by Chinese internal security doctrine. This is all happening right here in our backyard. Australia is the most influential country in the South Pacific region, and analysts say China's military expansion is a threat to our security, and this means tensions are inevitable. There are concerns that these infrastructure loans and projects increase Solomon Islands' debt dependency on Beijing and brings that influence closer to our borders. And we've already seen this tension play out. A couple of years ago, Beijing imported 95 replica rifles and 95 replica pistols into Solomon Islands. Canberra later donated 60 semi-automatic rifles with specialist training. And as a result, Australia was accused of making that donation just to stop China from building up its influence. What is needed, Mrs. Fieger, is an acknowledgement of a serious blunder. Australia has long seen itself as the security partner of choice in the Pacific, and we're still the Solomon Islands' largest donor. But these photos suggest that influence here is no longer guaranteed.